What is good, Tesla family? It's Ray J back with another video, and in this one I'm going to be talking about the one and only Tesla stock and what you should be looking after for the future. I'm also going to break down why tomorrow is likely going to be a wild day for Tesla and the collective market based off the trends we are seeing and based off what happened to Tesla today. I'm going to break down some very important levels, what the data is telling us, and also why on earth the market is starting to shift in terms of sentiment and in terms of price action. Now, before I break anything down about that, before I get into any more details about Tesla and the markets, I do have to mention a couple of things before starting. Firstly, I'm not a financial planner. Make sure you take none of this as financial advice whatsoever. And also, if you guys can, please smash the like button if you want to see more videos like this. It not only benefits me, it benefits the entire Tesla community as a whole. And the last thing is, if you guys can, please check out the Moomoo link down below and in the description. If you sign up for Moomoo and deposit $100 into the account, you're guaranteed 5 free stocks, each worth up to $3,000. And the best part is, any could be a free Tesla share. You'll also get some free level 2 data with $0 in trading commissions. The offer ends in just 5 days. Check it out before they run out. With that out of the way, let's get on with the video. So anyways, looking at Tesla, this thing was up about 3% for the day. It is actually outperforming the market technically, but we do have this bearish looking formation that did play out. I'm saying that because this is actually a gravestone doji, and these tend to be big reversal candles. Now that doesn't guarantee anything about Tesla, but even though we are seeing some nice volume, we are seeing Tesla continuing to push up, and we saw lots of call volume today. The problem is the market is trying to slow down, and this could actually slow Tesla down. Now, it is still possible for Tesla to break some important levels because on the MACD, there's no confirmation of it actually breaking down as of right now. There is still some nice momentum, but if the market does continue to tank, I want to warn everyone, if the market does start crashing tomorrow or we get another big hit, this could slow Tesla down, and I want everyone to be prepared for that just in case. Now, when it comes to Tesla, we do have some good things that broke down. We did see lots and lots of call buying, and the put to call ratio is now 0.86. This was closer to 1, but there are a lot more people in calls right now that are continuing to buy and buy and buy into Tesla. That's awesome. That's actually helping the price end up going up as market makers start to hedge by buying more of those shares. But the problem is there is a limit to this, and market makers right now might want to cause some pain for many of the investors out there. So there is an incentive for them to manipulate the stock when too many people start buying calls at once and everyone is just loading up and up and up. The market makers, once again, they do have different theories, different incentives to move the markets. Now, when it comes to data and earnings that just came out for the collective market, PayPal actually ended up beating on earnings per share. Their sales were just on target, and overall, they had a pretty decent report. So that's actually pretty good for the markets. But the problem is, guidance right now is still shifting as we are starting to see more and more of the job cuts. And also, there is a big change in the overall sentiment. I'm going to actually talk a little bit more about that a little bit later. But I want to break down the fact that tomorrow we have Honda and a couple of other companies announcing their earnings. Not going to be too big compared to last week. But we also have some consumer sentiment data coming out, followed by more Fed speakers coming out later on Friday. So the first one's coming out at about 12:30 p.m. Eastern time, and another one's going to come closer to the end of the day. So more Fed speakers are coming back. And we know when they speak, they do have a tendency of slowing the market down. So just be prepared for that. The odds are still favoring the bears as of right now, but once again, just be prepared. I also want to note something else that's a little bit concerning for the bulls, and that's the fact that the CNN Fear and Greed Index is a measure of the fear and greed, and this actually hit very extreme levels on the greed side. When the market sees these extreme levels, what tends to happen is so many people start buying and buying and buying, especially retail. And I mentioned to everyone in my previous videos that institutions, also known as smart money, I don't really like to use that term, but institutions in general, they don't trust the rally. And retail has been buying these dips so hard When we see extreme levels like this for greed, the market tends to end up forming those tops. This happened many times during every single top in 2020. It's likely going to happen again, but we need some confirmation first. Yes, there are many signals telling us the market's going to reverse, but the ultimate signal is going to be CPI when it comes out on Tuesday. I think the market is still on the edge for that. So I just want everyone to be prepared. Just so you know, yes, we could become very huge bears right now. Yes, we could talk about shorting the market, but it is still risky because we don't know what CPI is going to be, and it could still cause either side to win. So just be prepared for that. When it comes to Tesla, we had some nice volume, 213 million in volume, which is higher than the average volume. So we are still seeing lots and lots of motivated buyers. That's very awesome for Tesla, but at the end of the day, the collective market still affects the way the stock moves. The short volume percentage is beginning to decrease, meaning that those who are buying calls, people that are just loading the boat on shares, they have the edge over the stock as of right now, and they are continuing to buy and buy and buy. This trend could continue into tomorrow, but I still have other warnings I'm going to show you guys in a couple of minutes. Tesla is still heavily outperforming the market. That's an awesome sign. I'm very proud of Tesla and Tesla investors. I'm sure people made a lot of money on those options, and I can't give financial advice, but I want to make it clear, if you're up big, profit is profit. Please be very careful when it comes to greed, because greed and emotions are one of the worst enemies of a trader, someone that's very successful in investing and etc. So just be prepared for that. Tesla has been outperforming the market. Tesla's actually still green for the day, but the market did close red. And I do believe this could continue, but in order for it to continue, we need to see the trends continue. Now, I also want to note that RBC Capital, once again, is still very bullish on Tesla, saying it's likely going to outperform the entire market. When Tesla has strong earnings that are consistently beating and beating and beating, it makes investors very, very happy. Fridays are green only about 48% of the time, so historically, Tesla tends to not have the best of Fridays. February also tends to be not the best of months for Tesla. Also, for the collective market, we tend to see slower Februarys than Januarys, at least during both bull and bear markets. So the market could start to slow down during the second half of February. It's still very possible. Tesla sees lots of strong volume during the second hour of the day. So when you're watching Tesla, don't just judge it based off the first 30 minutes or so. You have to wait for like the second hour, also going into the fourth or fifth hours. It is a little bit slower compared to the markets. I mentioned this in other videos. It is the truth, and that is how it historically moves. What else is worth noting is the short volume. This is the short volume based off short interest. This is actually still kind of flat. So the shorts are not piling in like they were during different stages, at least as of yesterday. And we might start to see this increase over time, because I do believe that Wall Street and many of the shorts are looking at big opportunities to start piling in, especially if CPI ends up missing. So just be on the lookout. There are lots and lots and lots of institutions that like to manipulate stocks, and the market makers also play a big role in that too. So now when it comes to Tesla, let's talk about what's happening with the market and how that could affect Tesla as well. The S&P 500 or SPY, whichever one you want to use, it was actually following this trend that I was showing you guys. We had this really nice channel in the hourly time frame, and we just continued to push up and bounce off these major support zones, right? Over and over again since the beginning of January, this was happening. The market was on this big uptrend, and retail turned very, very bullish. Now, institutions were not trusting the rally, and that does not guarantee they're always right. But what's interesting is, finally, yesterday, the market actually closed right at this trend line. I mentioned this is very critical. The market had to bounce here for there to be a bigger edge for the bulls. We got the bounce like I predicted, but what I didn't predict is for us to actually come all the way down and then just break below it that fast. And that in turn did affect Tesla and how the whole market moved. Because now when you look at this, 410 failed us. SPY failed to hold 410. The next major level was that 408 area. We failed over there again. Then 405 came, we bounced off 405 and closed around 407. So now that the market broke this area, that's a sign of major weakness. And there is an increased probability that the bears are going to take advantage of this and start shorting very hard and try to drag the market down. On the daily MACD, we are starting to see this actually curl up a bit. This tells me that there is not as much momentum and many more sellers are coming in. If you're watching options data live, you maybe noticed a lot of selling of shares on the top and also lots of buying of the puts. Once we actually broke below that 410 area, that's where things became crazier. And I just want to note it's very important to be prepared for this, because I know people are very slow typically to actually react. Just be ready and be very reactive when you start to see changes. Now, I just want to note, hold on, that we could get a bounce tomorrow when we open. I think that the bulls might try to bring us right back to this 410 area, but there's no guarantee it's going to hold. I believe, yes, we're likely going to respect a bit of a downtrend and maybe trade very choppy and sideways. And I really believe that's likely to happen. And I think it's going to continue this way until CPI. The market is just waiting. As big institutions begin to hedge, they start to sell shares and they also start to buy puts at the same time to hedge during big events. So that could also lead to more downwards pressure. And we are starting to see very big signs of it. I also want to note what else is important is the VIX is actually starting to break out. It actually broke above 20. It broke out of this falling wedge that it has been respecting. And this is often a very big signal for the bears. Many bears are going to just be pouncing on this. They're going to start shorting very hard. And they love the fact that the VIX is breaking. I also believe that because we have this breakout that's now confirmed, it's likely going to continue to push up going into this 22 to 25 area very quickly. This is telling me that implied volatility for many options and also the entire S&P 500 is going to increase, right? The S&P 500 coming down is what's going to help this push up. This is telling me that there are big signals on the sell side for the market. Then on top of that, the dollar index, it did something very similar to what I predicted. We obviously had the breakout out of this falling wedge. We broke out and we came all the way down here to this level. I thought we'd go a little lower before bouncing. We actually look like we're holding 103 very well. The dollar looks like it's going to continue rising, and that's going to be very bearish for the stock market. You have to be prepared for that. What else is pretty bearish is one of the giants out there, Apple. It has a big gap below, and if it fails at 150, there's a good chance, whether it happens, by next week or maybe a couple of days, it could fail at 150 and start heading down. If it fails at like 150 to 148, there's this gap all the way down to this 145 area. If Apple comes down, it could drag the whole market down. What all of this data is telling me is that Tesla, yes, I do believe Tesla's outperforming the market. I believe Tesla has some nice strength to it, but right now it's going to be a lot more difficult for Tesla to break to those crazy high levels. That's why yesterday I told you guys, don't worry about 230 or like 250 or anything like that just yet. Let's focus on the stock from a level to level basis, right? And the 200 EMA happened to be on the daily chart around the 215 area. That was my target. We ended up peaking at 214, so very close to that. And I also believe that if you want to be bullish, it is still possible because Tesla's outperforming. We need to break 215. That's a very important level. If we break 215, this thing could fly to 220. If you break 220, then there's that 225 to 227 zone. That's where the 200 moving average happens to be on the daily chart. And I do believe Tesla could get there if we break 215, right? If we break 215 and 220, it is possible. However, there's a less likely chance of that happening now because of the overall daily setup. I showed you guys the daily doji that formed, one of the variations of it, and also because of how the market is underperforming. I want to note the fact that the major support was around this 205.5 area or around there. And we basically got a nice push up into open. Tesla was outperforming the market, holding up. And then the market started bleeding and it dragged Tesla down with it. And Tesla actually broke below this temporarily, managed to close above it. But if we break 205 tomorrow, okay, there's this gap all the way down to 200. Tesla would likely come all the way down there, in my opinion. What is likely to happen? Well, if you're a bull, you have to watch 215, a break above that. I'm sorry, first it's like 209, break 209, then comes like 214 to 215. If it breaks this 214 to 215 area, then we could fly to 220, then 225 to 227, which is where the 200 moving average is. Yes, That could happen if you're a bull. If you're a bear, you're going to be watching for a break below 205.5. If you break below this support zone, we're likely going to come all the way down for the gap fill around this. It's around the very low 200s. We're likely going to see that. And if we fail to actually hold right there, we're going to be retesting 198 to 200. There's no guarantee that holds, but I'm hoping that it does. All right, so very important to note. We also have some support around this 196 area. This is where the previous support line is that was holding us up for quite a while. You have to watch that very carefully as well if it does break down there. What do I think is going to happen is very hard to predict. The daily candle is obviously a reversal candle and the market is starting to downtrend, but I do think we're going to try to get a bounce into open. And once again, guys, I want to note I can't predict the news. I can't be perfect. But what I can do is give you guys a good understanding of the both bullish and bearish possibilities so you're prepared for anything. And I can give you my prediction. So what I think is going to happen is a nice bounce into open. Tesla's going to get to about 209. We might try to get back to 215. I don't really know if we're going to break it, especially because it's a Friday when the odds actually favor us not doing that. Unfortunately, it is what it is. What I think is going to happen is Tesla's going to try, and I think that the bears are going to come in. There might be an increase in selling in the markets, and we might see the market continue to sell off a bit. We might see the bears take advantage of this opportunity. And that in turn might take Tesla back down to this 205 area. I expect a lot of chop between 205 and 209, and we might end up coming down. I think it's very likely they're going to eventually drag Tesla down to fill this gap down here around this 200 area. Could we break below it? Yes, but I'm not going to really talk way too much about that. Just remember the levels, which are 198, this 196 zone, which is where the support line is. Then we have 195 followed by 190. Just watch these levels very carefully. I think they might try to bring Tesla down to fill this gap and maybe come a little bit lower than that. So watch that very carefully. That would be my guess for the remainder of the day tomorrow. Once again, I can't promise anything. Be prepared for anything and watch the levels very, very closely. The market is showing weakness, and this in turn is affecting Tesla. If you don't believe it, just look at the overall setup today. We had a very nice rally. We were pushing up. Tesla wanted to keep going, but the market slowed it down, and Tesla did end up coming all the way back where it started. Once again, signaling a potential reversal from here. It is very possible, but I'm not guaranteeing it because the daily MACD and technical indicators are not suggesting it yet. It could still happen, so just be prepared and be very cautious. The market is very risky right now. There's lots of volatility. I think it's going to be kind of wild to watch the bears and bulls fight, but I also believe that very important to be prepared for anything and to do the best TD possible, because as traders, we are very eclectic, we're very adaptive, and just remember these key levels. So I thank you all so much for listening. I think the gap fill is very likely for tomorrow, and it is what it is. I mean, Tesla is still an awesome company, but the way the market moves does affect every stock out there. So I just want to thank you all. Have a great day. Tesla to the moon, because the long-term future is still very, very bright, and peace out.